And we are recording. All right, welcome to our last week of ODSA Data Viz Spring 2024. We've come a long way in the last 6 nights. I will say tonight will be kind of the culmination of everything that we learned, putting together some self-service dashboards. And then we're really just going to take that, refine it, finish it out, make it look pretty. And that will be our final project for Wednesday. And then we'll be done. So pay attention tonight. And if you follow along exactly, Wednesday will be really, really easy. So glad we have a large majority of you in person tonight. But obviously the people remote, please chime in if you miss anything and we can share screens. And I want to make sure that everyone feels really, really good before we get to Wednesday. So then hopefully Wednesday can be really easy and we will go from there. A couple housekeeping things. So I just talked to Nate. He informed me, and maybe you guys already knew this, but the sequel class, which is everyone's next class in the track that you're on, starts on Monday. So no weeks off. It just flows right into it. Same time, same place. He told me the professor's name, and I already forgot it, so I apologize for that. But that will start a week from today in this spot. Same StreamYard, Slack setup, everything like that. It sounds like there's going to be 3 or 4 more students joining that class midway through. Otherwise, I think it'll be the same kind of cohort of people that we have right now. So best of luck to you guys. I'll miss you dearly. But congrats on getting through almost the first step in your data science adventure. Nate will be joining on Wednesday via StreamYard. He's on a trip, so he won't be able to come in person. But he'll be joining to talk through more details of the SQL class and internship opportunities are the 2 things that he's going to discuss on Wednesday in this class. And then he's going to be joining on Monday to do kind of his normal rah-rah hoo-hoo speech for the SQL kickoff. And he will bring the Data Viz certifications to class on Monday to hand those out. And for people that aren't here, he'll email them to you. So any questions about next up stuff, feel free to ask now. Otherwise, my answer is probably going to be wait for Nate to talk on Wednesday. So anything you guys got there? Cool. Before we dive into the main part of class today, I alluded to last week that we're going to have a guest speaker. So Scott Dobberpool is on StreamYard here. You guys sitting in the class heard his voice booming over the loudspeakers a few minutes ago. I'm going to stop sharing my screen. Scott, feel free to present and I'll get everything set up. While you are doing that, I will give a quick intro for Scott. So Scott Dobberpool joined my data science team at Buildertrend 3 years ago, 2-3 years ago, as an intern, actually. 2 years ago. I'm going to make sure I'm going to drag you over here. And I'm going to go full screen so that people in class are also seeing the same thing as people online. So Scott graduated with a computer science degree. Wasn't really sure what he wanted to do. Interested in data analytics. I met with him and said, how about an internship to kick things off? Ever since then, he's been a complete and utter rock star. One of those people that can just solve any problem you give him, no matter what. So one of the main problems I gave him when he first started as an intern was this idea of customer-facing data science. So we had been doing data science at Buildertrend internally for our internal stakeholders for 5 years or so. We had never really taken that data science power and all the data that we were sitting on and serviced it to our customers. So we started this initiative called custom reporting, is what it was titled at the time. And essentially what that was an a la carte, extremely white glove, bespoke, whatever buzzword you want to use, service for our customers, where we would take their data and put it into whatever dashboard they wanted to see and give it to them. So we had no idea how to scale it. We had no idea the right way to do it. We just knew that there was a demand for it and we knew that we could offer a supply. So the way it worked for the first probably year and a half is just one at a time. Scott and his team, he led the team, would meet with customers and talk through what business problems are you guys trying to solve? What things are you manually doing in Excel right now? What things you wish Buildertrend would do that it doesn't do for you? Take those inputs and build a custom dashboard for them. So when we started out, we were literally just doing it in Buildertrend's Tableau server. And we locked that. We had literally our financial metrics in one folder, then right beside it, like a one-off report for one of our builders. So lockdown permissions, it was a nightmare and a headache. And you guys probably did 30 customers each with probably 5 to 10 different reports. So I would say Scott's actually way more experienced in Tableau than I am, because I only had to work with one customer, which was Builder Trend, and build reports for them. And he had to work with, I'm not sure if any of you guys have family members or friends in construction or working in construction yourself, but very, very specific needs, and very, very in-depth, skilled workers that need to see things a very specific way, or else the house doesn't get built. So he built 150 different dashboards over the course of the year. In the past 6 months or so, we have finally been like, hey, there's something to this. We can scale this at a higher degree, and built out a whole team around it. So there's 3 or 4 different data visual specialists now, which is a specific role, not just data analysts or data scientists, purely building data vises at Builder Trend. We have a team lead for them. We have a account manager, so like a class A, like customer success manager, that's handling the transition of like onboarding these reports. And we have a full sales team selling it. And we have transitioned from using Tableau to using Domo. So I would still probably call Tableau the like market leader in data visualization. Where they lack is really where Domo excels, which is an embedded external facing data visualizations. So when they spin up a data viz, instead of going to just a Builder Trend SQL or Tableau server or Tableau public or something like that, it actually spins up their own instance for that customer. So if you look at his URL right now, it's like buildertrend-dev.domo.com. If we were to build one for like Burt Whistle Homes, they would have burtwhistlehomes.domo.com. And we have these kind of standard out of the box reports that we give them, so everyone gets the same thing. And then we have that layer of customization to them. But the really, really cool thing is we sell them these reports titled as self-service reports. So they have all the like kind of dashboard actions and filters and parameters and stuff like that we're going to learn about tonight. And that's why it was timely to have Scott come and speak. Is really what we're going to be learning about tonight is building dashboards for customers that don't just want to look at it one time, that want to look at it on a recurring basis, want to slice and dice the data themselves, want to customize it without having to go in and build their own dashboard. How can they customize a dashboard you give them just with parameters and filters and dashboard actions and stuff that you give them to? So obviously we're not going to cover that all with Scott's little like demo here. Really why I wanted to bring him on to show Domo is every year before Nate and I spin up this class, and it's only been twice, but every year before we do this, we talk through what are we seeing changing in the data science industry? What do we want to change from last year to this year? And it's not just Nate and I, it's all 5 or 6 different instructors that they have. And something that everyone brought up this year is like, hey, we're seeing a lot of other competitors to Tableau in the market right now. It used to be if you're doing data science, you're building a dashboard, you were using Tableau for it. Now people are using Power BI, people are using Domo, people are using Looker. And any interview I ever had, when I talked to someone, they said, I've never used Tableau before, I've only used Power BI, and they were worried about it. My point to them and my point to you guys is they're all pretty much the same. Like, as far as building a data viz go, they're going to be pretty much one-to-one, and the reason that we use Tableau is it's still the leader. But I want you guys to be able to say, if you go to have an interview or go to build a job, or are even looking for a specific use case that you think something else might be better than for Tableau, to not be overwhelmed and to at least have some exposure to a different tool. So you can say confidently, I could learn that if I really wanted to. I feel comfortable working in multiple tools, even though we're only teaching in Tableau. A couple of years from now, we could switch to teach this class in Domo or another tool that pops up. But for tonight, Scott's going to walk you guys through like 10, 15 minutes of just how to build a couple of really, really simple things in Domo. And that will be our show. And long, rambling intro. Scott, anything I missed before you want to dive into the demo here?
No, I think it would be just how similar the building process is going to be compared from Tableau to Domo. Is Domo really followed in Tableau's footsteps, but also added a bunch of horsepower behind the scenes to kind of take it from, since I'm assuming you guys are building in like Tableau desktop, taking kind of what Tableau desktop was for the last 20 years at this point, going forward into kind of, building on those like great BI building blocks and kind of just cranking up to 11 in a sense.
Cool. I love it. Go ahead and jump in.
Sweet. So I took the Superstore data set, which is Tableau's like go-to data set.
These guys are very familiar with Superstore data
perfect.
at this point. Yeah.
Perfect. So then nothing should be, they might see a wrong number here or there, but so I just took this and built this today. And so it acts the exact same way as we see in Tableau of, you hover and you can get kind of like your tooltip extra. You can click into and filter the same way as an action would on our Tableau, like as, I started in Tableau as well. So it all is very like intuitive. So it goes right into the same base functionality that we see in Tableau. You can build a whole suite of different charts. So, we have our line graphs, our, by state, which sometimes can be really painful in Tableau, but is also just super easy in Domo. And with that filtering, you can, click on Nebraska, click on Iowa, and then just go right back up and see your KPIs, and then also like your bar charts and line charts. What I wanted to do with you guys is just show, and this is the behind the scenes. So Domo is a little overwhelming when you first get into it, but as you look more and more, it gets back to just like what you've seen a million times of dragging pills into different spots. So we can take out like customer ID, and then instead of that, we can put in our customer names and just immediately get back our same chart. I would say Domo has almost infinitely more different chart types that they have built out, just from the basic bar chart to, bullet, which I've never used, or symbol stack bar charts, which is just, I've got no clue what's going on there, but it really gives you a lot of, I think, a little bit more custom, like built-in customization compared to with Tableau in the past sometimes has, it takes a little extra effort to get something to where it needs to be. And especially when like you're working with how I did, where every customer wants it a super specific way. You'll just see some like, they'll always ask, why doesn't this exactly work as Excel does? And so you're always going to be apologizing for that, but it's always a good exercise to see how far you can go until you break it. And so Domo has some great functionality that really has a little bit of that, like different functionality that Tableau doesn't always see, but we also see that exact same stuff, maybe just a few extra steps. So we can just like bounce around and do a bunch of different chart types. We have the same controls for like colors, where it's a little, it'll be a little different the first time you get into it. And I will admit Domo is very tough to look at the beginning, since there's, all of these data tables where you can click and look at the current data. You can take away the controls or not. One nice part is really that you can just click and look at your data while doing your analyses, which is a super like just simple thing, but really makes life a lot easier. So you can be like, okay, postal codes, we have that, or even like something fun is like ship date. We can almost see like, is there seasonality there? And then going back into visualize, we can go check and visualize to see if there actually is any seasonality. And it has the same controls as Tableau does, with just changing headers, changing scale. Filtering would be the exact same thing. So, if we wanted to do, order date, you just drag and drop it onto your pill, or drop the pill onto the filters. Range selection, same thing with Tableau, and then or an aggregation, which doesn't really make sense for order date, but it's still there. So you can do all of this stuff. It really is such a similar functionality, just with like a little extra sauce behind the scenes. The next part would be calculated fields, is where you'll see kind of the biggest difference from the two, where we still have all of our typical functions. This is just where you're going to see a change in syntax. And so that's where, and I guess you'll learn that in your next one for for SQL is like the difference between BigQuery SQL and SQL Server SQL is just like they do the same exact things behind the scenes, but instead of, I guess, date diffs, instead of, the first date being the starting date, the first date's actually going to be the end date. So anytime you flip between the two, you're going to get a negative number instead of a positive one. So there's always going to be a little bit of difference, but super similar in the fact that how the biggest change is they call them beast modes instead of calculated fields.
Sounds way cooler.
Yeah,
Brandon,
it sounds
you
cool.
nailed that one.
And we got really, pizzazzed about it, be like, oh, beast modes, and then we got into it and we're like, oh, these are really just calculated fields. So going back here, we have just like the Superstore dash where, again, filtering's the same. The nice part, again, for like when we look and send these out for our customers is this is a default thing with all Tableau, or not Tableau, but Domo dashboards, is where the end user, which I am seeing the end result right now, can actually go in and look at the data set. Gift and a curse sometimes, but they can also go be like, oh, I can just click into customer name and see, Aaron Hawkins, click in and see what the entire dash looks only in resemblance of Aaron, which you have to set up in Tableau, and it takes that little extra step. But with Domo, it really is just out of the box feature functionality, and every chart will filter down as long as it's built within the same data set. So that's something super similar. Other than that, I was going to show this very, very fancy pre-built sales dashboard. So it gives like, this is what we show our builders when we're selling this product is, we can show sales forecasting. We can go by team. It shows the pipeline, which this is an incredibly messy chart, so I don't really recommend this one. But you can see by stage, which is like something that we report on a lot since our builders are going through the same thing that, Builder Trend does is, we have a sales pipeline. We want to get these homes built. So doing a lot of stuff for like internally, we do also externally since they are both functioning companies. And then so we just built this mostly off of a pre-build and then also just tailored it very much to our builders. But this shows a lot of like the functionality that Domo has of just, it is really the same as Tableau, but it's also just slightly different where you just have to kind of keep it all in mind when building dashboards and figuring out the goals of a company. So
I'd say a couple things just to double click on what you had talked about is even just like the show me type things that we use a lot in Tableau. They kind of have those, probably like 15 to 20 different out of the box reports that we always click into. Those are a lot more robust in Domo. So like they have the pie chart and the donut chart, which is like kind of the same, but it would take an extra step for us to build the donut in Tableau. The funnel that you're just showing on that last one, like funnels are absolutely brutal to build in Tableau, and they're super, super easy to build in Domo. And Scott's favorite is actually just like simple tables. In Tableau, it's really, really hard to make tables look pretty. But Domo has a ton of functionality out of the box to make those look fresh and not just like an Excel thing. But for all the same like pros that we're saying for Domo, people would also say there's pros and cons on the Tableau side as well too. So I think that was a good walkthrough. Are there any questions from the class on just kind of the overall? Yeah, Laura. And I'm going through the speaker on my laptop, so I'll probably have to repeat it. But.
So the customers being able to look at the data set, is that automatic? Block that?
Is the customers being able to look at the data set, is that automatic, or can you block that with permission?
As far as filtering, it typically is automatic, but you can, yes, remove the functionality of letting people see inside the data set, which is not always the best for an end user. But by default, yes, it is default functionality.
Are they similar?
It kind of depends. Domo, I would say out of the box is going to be more expensive, but it scales a lot easier. So since they're really building for external viewing, like some of their biggest customers are actually like state governments and stuff that are building state websites that hundreds of thousands or millions of people are going to. So it scales like from a viewer perspective a lot easier because you can just kind of let everyone go in and view. Whereas Tableau, typically you're building for a single company, so you have to buy individual viewer licenses. So for only 200 some people, it'd probably be more expensive. Well, more expensive for Domo, but then if you wanted to scale for 2 million, it would get more expensive for Tableau and vice versa. So it really just kind of depends on the use case. I'm not a sales rep for either one, so.
One other very cool part of that Domo has is it has the App Store, which is actually like one built by certain companies, but also has a ton of just user-built content that's then verified by Domo, like admins, I would say. So a lot of the times when you see like a shortfall of Domo, which, you know, it could be like missing a chart type, you can actually just go in and browse, like, you know, let's look at marketing stuff. And then it has your connections, but then also like a card where, you know, it might be dynamic column bricks, which I have no idea what it does. But if you're really looking for a specific problem, it can sometimes be solved by the community already without having to go into, like, I'm sure everybody's been into the Tableau blog area to go look at like how to do a certain thing. So then there's a little bit of that doubleness of somebody can actually publish a solution and then it be verified by Domo. So we've used this in the past and pulled in different chart types that just make like what would take, you know, hours of customization and like really filtering out to just being like a point and click adventure. And then all like the connections, that's the other part, all the like data connections that Tableau has, Domo has, and then some probably. They're so similar. They're both, you know, the goal is to be the leader of the BI space, so they both have to do very similar things.
Love it. Anything else that you want to show, Scott?
Other than that, I don't think so. I think we could just run through editing a dashboard really fast. That works.
Yeah, let's build one. Let's build a line chart real quick, just so they can see kind of the drag and drop functionality.
Yep. So dashboards are built very similar. You know, it's just we have like, you know, we could add a header here and call this, you know, Superstore, if I could spell. And then when we want to add actual content, we just come over to a pill, grab it, and then create new card. You're going to get all of your choices of, you know, commentary, dot cards, which is, you know, adding photos and other things. And then obviously ours is existing data and an actual visualization. So the first option we get is to just browse. And Domo's kind of fun because it always fills something automatically, which it really is kind of a fun adventure because it guesses on what is like a useful thing. So we have like sum of postal code here, which is completely useless. So we're just going to turn that off. And so what we can do is look at multi-line and just have one, we got to take off sum of postal code first for just do profit. And it automatically builds a lot of this. And so now we're just doing profit by shipping method. But if we really want to do by state, which is going to be a ton of lines, or by subcategory, it's all going to have just like the immediate feature functionality that we see in Tableau. We can also do it with like step lines, which again would just be a couple extra clicks in Tableau in the marks page, or symbol lines where we can go in and change these marks. We can scale change.
Do
our
they have
different
last week we talked a lot, maybe it was 2 weeks about just like quick table calcs. Like, can you easily change the sum of profit to be like a running sum?
For this, no, that's going to be actually a little bit tougher where I'm going to have to actually remember that one. But most of the time it takes a calculated field for that, which I'm actually blanking on how to do.
That's fine. I mean, I
So
just wanted
that's the shortcoming of
I kind of
Domo,
knew
I
that
guess.
was the answer, which is why I asked, because I wanted to show that Tableau does do some things better too. Because I was worried you were doing too good of a job of this demo, and then everyone was going to be wondering why I'm teaching the class in Tableau. So I had to toss out a shortcoming of Domo there. I do love, if you clicked on the curved symbol line, I actually do love the way that curved charts look as opposed to the straight, even though they're technically inaccurate. But yeah, I do like that visualization. Okay, any other questions for Scott? Otherwise, we need to get going here. Anyone online? Cool. Well, Scott, thank you very, very, very much. If you guys can't tell, he's posted up at Builder Trend HQ right now. So I appreciate you staying late to give this demo. And hopefully you guys found it beneficial. Round of applause for Scott.
Appreciate it, guys. I hope Charlie's a good teacher, and I hope you guys give him a ton of crap for it. So
Perfect.
Have a good
Thanks,
night,
Scott.
everybody.
See ya. Cool. Mr. Dauberpool, you guys a total stud. So tonight we are actually we have a lot to cover tonight. So I'm actually going to skip all of my PowerPoint and just jump right into the hands-on because we have a lot of stuff to cover and I think PowerPoints are boring. So let me share my screen. And we'll go ahead and jump right into it. So as always, we're going to open up Tableau Public. Oh, I just saw the comments. Rashendo, I'm not sure if Domo has a public or free trial version. I will do some Googling over the break here and in about half an hour, and I'll follow up with that answer. Remind me tomorrow. Excel, Superstore, orders. All right. So the first thing that we're going to be covering here, I'm going to have this beside me, is something called a parameter. Now, parameters are essentially a variable or a new data point that you guys are creating that is no longer connected to your data set. So when we made calculated fields, those were new data points that we were creating, but they're all based off of the data that we had. So we were doing something between two columns that already existed, creating a new data point. Parameters are going to be globally available to us to use in a number of different ways. So the easiest way that I can show you, well, there's a few different ways. I wouldn't say the easiest. The first thing that we're going to do, let's just do category and sales or something. And let's make this a bar chart. So we did something in the past with a calculated field where we wanted to color something if it was above or below a goal, right? We did a calculated field and we did above goal. Something like if sum, I'll make this big, although you guys don't need to follow along for this part. If sum of sales is greater than, let's do like 750,000, then good, else bad, end. Right, this is something we've done before, and then we could color it based on that. So then we had anything that was above 750 be this color, everything else is blue, right? Last week we talked about bringing in like a constant line, right? You could easily change this constant line to be 750 to see if it was above or below. But then what happens when your goal changes? What happens when you need that to be dynamic? You no longer want it to be connected to your data. You want to create your own data point. That's where parameters come into play. So we are going to go to this little drop-down arrow here, right to the right of the search bar. We could create a calculated field. We're going to go the second option here, create parameter. And so we're going to call this, let's just call it goal. Now it's going to give us a few different data points to choose from. Floats are essentially just numbers with decimal points. Integers are just numbers. Strings are just text. Booleans, true, false. A date is a date, and a date time has time on it too. So to make it simple, let's just call it an integer. And then this is like the display format that you guys are used to seeing. So for this one, maybe since we're doing a goal for our sales goal, we can do a currency. We can put, we don't need decimal points to it. And we can toss thousands on it since that's how it's displaying in our thing. We don't really need to worry about that too much though, but you can make it look fancier. And then what do you want our current value to be? So for this one, we're going to toss in our current value of 750,000. Then when the workbook opens, you can, if we had some other data sets that we're joining in, we can mess with this, but you can just leave it for current value. And then allowable values. This is going to give you the option to be all, which is literally every number in existence, a list, which would be having to select like 750,000 options and going in and choosing them. Or typically what I do when I'm working with integers is a range. And then you can set your minimum. Let's call this, we're not going to have a goal below 500,000. And the maximum, maybe let's call it 1 million. And then the step size is how big of increments that we want it to be. Since we're working with hundreds of thousands and millions here, maybe let's call the step size at least 10,000. Now this will all make sense, and we'll go back through another example of this in a bit. Once I hit OK, down below here in my kind of variable view, right? We have our dimensions, our measures. We now have a parameter. So if we right click that arrow, we can hit show parameter. And now we have this new thing that says goal is 500,000. And you can see that you can drag this all the way up to 1 million or down to 500,000. It's not connected to anything yet. It's not cool yet. It is literally just a data point that we can control. So let's set it right at 750,000. Is everyone with me so far? It doesn't matter if you're following along for this part or not. Yep. So you click the arrow here and just hit show parameter. So why is this useful? Why did we do this? Let's go ahead and open up our above goal calculated field that we made. And let's get rid of this hard-coded 750,000 and just type in goal. And when we hit tab, you should see it pops up and is purple now. We've never seen this purple thing before. That is just signifying that it is a parameter. So we're saying if sum of sales is greater than goal, then good, else bad. So everything's exactly the same. The goal is set at 750K right now. So nothing really changes, except now instead of hard coding a value in there, we are making it dynamic and giving the user control to change that. So if I hit OK, nothing changes because it's set exactly as it was. But if I drag this up to 1 million, you can see that now that none of these are above goal, right? Because this highest one here is 836. If I drag it to like 740, now you can see that these two are the only two above because this is at 742. This is at 836. This one is below at 719. So that's why it's still colored bad. If I drag this all the way down to like 600, now we see all three of those are above goal. So with one simple parameter, we've now made technically our dashboard here dynamic in a really simple way with just giving some control to the user to allow them to update the view that they're looking at without having to go in and create a calculated field. Does that all make sense, at least from a high level of why parameters are parameters, the theory of parameters? Okay. Let's go ahead. We're going to rename this one goal. Now, I will have you guys follow along for this one. Let's go ahead and create a new one. Let's just duplicate this one. So this was a parameter that we use just kind of based on nothing. We just created it from scratch. We can actually use parameters with our data as well. And I'll show you an example of that in a sec right now, I guess. So say we wanted to give the user the option of showing either sales or profit. Now this is published out on Tableau Public, so they're not inside of desktop. They can't create this for themselves. We obviously can just go in here, do profit. Let's get rid of our goal thing because that's confusing. Or we could go and we could pull in sales, right? That's how we would switch between the two. But we want to give the user the power to look at both of those. We don't want to publish two separate charts. Maybe and actually what we'll build for our final project will have 5 or 6 or 7 different measures to sort between. We don't want to publish 5 or 6 or 7 different charts. So we are going to create another parameter, just like before. And we're going to call this, just call it measure parameter. So this is going to be a parameter that's going to let the end user select which measure they want to look at. Do they want to look at sales? Do they want to look at profit? Do they want to look at discounts? So on and so forth. So for this one, we're going to give them a list of strings or a list of text to choose from. And we are going to add those values based on what measures we want to give them access to. So let's make it really simple. We're just going to give them 2. We're going to type in sales, and we're going to type in profit. Everything else is staying the same. It's just retitled it measure parameter. We're saying it's a string. It's a list that has sales and profit in it. That's all we need to do for now. And then just like before, we're going to hit show parameter. Now this is, right, we worked with this integer, that's like this range thing. Now we have a list where a user can go and select sales, profit, right? Really simple for now. Now this isn't connected to anything. It's literally just a list that they can choose from where measure parameter equals sales right now, measure parameter equals profit. So we can use that with our data now by creating a calculated field. And we're just going to call this measure choice. Let's make this big. And we're just going to say if measure parameter equals sales, then sales. Else if measure parameter equals profit, then profit. End. So now we have this field that is either going to return sales if the measure parameter is on sales, or it's going to return the field profit, right? This field sales, this field profit, if the parameter is equal to sales or profit. So now we hit OK. We have this brand new field, and we're going to drag this up on top or to replace the sum of profit that we had before. Now we can click into sales, and our chart updates to show the sum of sales. We can click into profit. The chart updates to show the sum of profit. So this field, sum of measure choice, isn't changing. All that's changing is the parameter, and this field knows that when the parameter equals sales to show sales, else if it equals profit, show profit. So now again, when we publish this out to Tableau Public, they don't need to go in and create their own chart. They can go in and just select between these two, or discounts or quantity. It'd be really, really easy to add whatever we wanted, or we create a new calculated field, which is time to ship or whatever that may be. And they now have access to start servicing themselves. This is why we called it a self-service dashboard, without having to be able to use Tableau themselves. Any questions? If we are going to go kind of step by step here, so if you guys don't have this working, let me know and we can click around. Yeah. So click into your parameter, this little arrow here, and click edit. Does this say string right here? Okay. Now click into your measure choice and click edit. And do you have quotes around this?
Oh, I don't have.
There you go. Yep. Or did you have a question? Yes. Okay. Any questions for people following remotely?
How did you get to that edit screen again?
Yeah, so for either your parameter or calculated field, just hover over until you get this little arrow, and then just click edit here. Or on your calculated field, hover over, get the arrow, edit here. Yep. All right, everyone good with this one? Sweet. So let's rename this measure parameter. All right, so for our third parameter example, we did an integer one that's essentially just a variable that we use in a calculated field. We did a parameter that allowed us to choose a different measure, either sales or profit here. Now for our third one, we're going to create a parameter that allows us to choose a different dimension. So right now we're showing by category. Let's say we want to look at either by category or subcategory or region. Let's create that. So we can go ahead and duplicate this one. We are going to create a new parameter, and we're going to call this our dimension parameter. Once again, this is going to be a string, and we're going to give our users a list to choose from, and we're going to add in category. let's do subcategory. Whoops. And let's do region. So they don't technically, doesn't technically matter what you type here, but it is important that you remember what you type here. So if you have a spelling error or capitalization or something like that, you'll need to make sure that you type it the same way in your calculated field. So I always just try to type things exactly as they're labeled over here, so I don't have to try to remember. But if you did have something really weird titled over here, like when I created my above goal field, obviously I wouldn't want to show that to the user. So it gives you an option to display it as something else. But in the back end, they stay the same. Don't need to worry about that. Just try to type everything kind of exactly as how they have it over here. All right, so we created this new parameter called dimension parameter. Again, let's show it. And again, it's not doing anything yet other than we have this parameter that equals region now, equals subcategory now, and equals category now. Everyone with me so far? Cool. Now let's create a calculated field using that. And we're going to call this dimension choice. Big. And just very similar to our measure parameter, we're just going to go through the options here and say if dimension parameter equals, what do I have? Category, subcategory, region. Again, in text category, then category. Right, so this is saying if this option equals category, then return the field category. Else if the dimension parameter equals sub category. And again, make sure you type it the same way that it's typed over here, or the same way that you typed it in here. Then subcategory, else if dimension parameter equals region. Oops. And region. End. So I'll leave this up for a second as you guys are all following along. But again, we just created one single field, a calculated field, that will now have three options based on what this dimension parameter is showing. So I can click OK. And now I'm just going to replace my category with my dimension choice. So now you can see that my dimension parameter is selected on region. So I'm seeing central, east, south, and west, right? Those are my four regions. And my measure parameter from before is selected on profit. So I'm seeing profit by these four different regions. If I change this to subcategory, I now have accessories, appliances, art, blah, 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 blah. Again, by profit. Or I can click into region. Whoops, I already was region. Category. And I have furniture, office supplies, and technology. And again, now these are working in conjunction with each other because I'm looking at my dimension choice by my measure choice. So I could click into sales if I wanted to. I could go sales by subcategory. I could go profit by subcategory. I could go profit by region. So in this one simple dashboard now, I now have 3 times 2, 6 different possible views showing 6 different possible things on one single chart that I could publish out to Tableau Server and let someone mess around with it. Now, again, if we were to actually make this more robust, and a spoiler into what we'll do for next week, we could go in and add city, country, product name, ship mode, right? 10 different choices here, 10 different choices here. And now we have 100 different possible combinations in a dashboard to publish out to Tableau Server or Tableau Public and give our user 100 different things to play around with. Everyone with me so far? Does everyone have both the dimension parameter and the measure parameter working? Cool. Then the last thing I'll show before we take our first break, I'm just going to rename this one. Dimension. Is the cool thing about parameters, and I mentioned this earlier, is they're what called a global variable, so you can use them anywhere. So I'm going to go ahead and create a new one here, and I'm actually going to update my title because it's a little confusing, right? It says dimension choice here, it says measure choice here. Yes, you can mess around with the parameters, but these are a little confusing. Like if you didn't build this yourself, you may not know what you're looking at. So let's go ahead and double click into our title. And by default, it's just going to be called whatever the sheet name is. We have messed around with titles once before when we colored them something slightly different. But if I don't want it to be just called whatever my sheet name is, let's get rid of that. And in our handy little insert function here, we now have 3 new parameters to use in here. We have our parameters.dimension parameter and our parameters.measure parameter. So let's call this let's click on the measure parameter. And just to show you guys how this works, if I hit OK, it now says sales. If I click on profit, it now says profit. So let's click back into the title and just type profit, right? Measure parameter by dimension parameter. So now it says profit by region, profit by category, sales by category, sales by subcategory. So now it's telling you what it's showing, and we can get rid of, right, hide field labels. Double click into this, delete that. Sales by subcategory. Nice. And now it updates in the title, so we don't have to worry about the labels. Did everyone get their titles working? Cool. Well, hard part done, actually. The rest should be smooth sailing if you guys understand that. Let's take a quick 10-minute break. Get up, stretch the legs, get some snacks. Even though I don't think Nate got any of the snacks that we recommended. Yeah.
Your goal doesn't work anymore, right?
It doesn't, yes. But let's go ahead and make this work real quick because it's really easy to do. Let's go in and edit our above goal field. The only thing we would need to do differently is see how it's still saying if the sum of sales is greater than goal. Now we're showing the sum of whatever measure choice, so sum or profit. So just get rid of sales, type in measure choice, hit OK. So I'll make that bigger if you guys can see. If sum of measure choice greater than goal, then good, else bad. Now we can drag that back onto the color. And right now it is set at 750. I don't think we had it able to go below 500K. So we can go in and edit our goal parameter. And let's just make the minimum range here 0. Now we can drag this down to like 50K, 60K. So if it's set to 60, these are good. These are below 60, those are bad. And what's cool is we can change it to sales now. Goal is 60K, so obviously they're all above that. But we could drag it up to 400K or something. And now these are good and those are bad. So now all 3 of our parameters are kind of connected together into one view. And then one last thing, sorry for the false alarm on the break. Now that we are using goal in here, let's just round it out. Let's double click into sales by region. And let's add at the very end of this parentheses goal, colon, and then let's go ahead and just insert our parameter.goal in there as well. So now you can see our goal is at 500K or 400K. It's showing that on the dashboard. Everything above 400K is colored good. Everything below is colored bad. If I change this to 680, our title changes. This is the only one colored good now. Drag it down to 220. So on and so forth. Gosh, and I mean, this is just so close to being a perfect view. Let's go ahead and round it out. So let's format it. Let's on our rows, let's add that axis ruler to make it pop so we get that little black line in there. Right, so that's just clicking into lines, rows, axis ruler, black.
You said that we edited the parameter. Did you change anything else other than the minimum?
No. I'll pop up there in a second. And then let's get rid of our column grid lines as well too. Now it's beautiful. Maybe change our colors to make more sense. Green good, red bad. All right. Close the so you're changing the goal here. Here, if it's greater than, so you close out this. Like over this one. That one is 836,000. Greater than 800.
Gotcha. So it's just basically set.
Yeah. So we going all the way up. Oh, okay. So drag it to like.
Yeah, we'll show one of them.
Yeah, I'm not sure why there's only showing one.
Yeah, that's perfect. Yeah, thank you.
Yep. All right. 10-minute break starting now. Let's be back at 7:13. And we'll keep going. All right. Let's go ahead and jump back in. So first half there was talking about parameters. I think we got a pretty good handle on those. Now we're going to talk about dashboard actions. So just to kind of remind you guys of goal for Wednesday, so you can kind of be following along with stuff that we need to remember or learn, right? This will be the dashboard that we're making here. On the right here, we have the scatter plot. You can click in, group them by category, shipping mode, subcategory, product name, city. So now we know how to do that, right? That's just a real simple parameter that is grouping them by the scatter plot by whatever the breakout is here. We actually have two other parameters on the same chart. Right here we have sales, here we have orders, which is just our x-axis orders, y-axis sales. We could change this to be profit. We can change this to be sales. We can change this to be shipping mode, and those update. So that's essentially just three different parameters all working together. You can see in the title we have profit versus sales by shipping mode. So we essentially already know how to build this. It's just making it a little bit more robust. But the second part of tonight that we're going to cover, which is where this gets really cool, is we have over on this left this little map view that right now is showing profit margin by state. But if we click into a specific state, this updates over here, and you can see in our title here it says colored by profit margin for state - Nebraska. If we unclick that, it's for all states. We can click on South Dakota, it updates here. If we want to change it for being profit margin to being profit or something, this one updates. Now it's colored by profit for state. You can click into Texas. So, and actually something I forgot about the last time I showed this, but if you hover over it, it pops up this little learn more option. If you click into that, it takes you to the Wikipedia page for Texas, which is kind of cool. So that's what we're going to cover now, is how to get these two dashboards to work together with dashboard actions. And then also how to use a dashboard action to take you to a different URL. So we are going to go ahead and create that same map to give us a little head start for next week. We're going to leave, or on Wednesday, we'll leave the scatter plot for Wednesday. This will be good enough for now. Let's create a new, first of all, let's call this, rename pretty bar chart, just to remember it. Let's create a new one. So something we haven't talked about up to this point was how to create maps or geographical views inside of Tableau. I've alluded to it a few different times, but in our measures and dimensions over here, based on what type of data it is, it has a different symbol beside it. So an ABC is just a text field. These little circle things that look like basketballs, I believe they're supposed to be globes. So they let you know that this is a geographical data. City, country makes sense. Customer, these are all text. The little calendar is a date. And the little number sign obviously is a number. So if we want to go ahead, let's just do something real simple. If you double click on state here, notice how it pops up latitude and longitude. Those are automatically pulled in from Tableau. So it can recognize the name of cities, it can recognize the name of countries, it can recognize the name of states. And it's not actually plotting, this is Nebraska, like the title Nebraska. It is plotting the longitude and latitude of Nebraska. So it just does kind of the center point of every state here. And then it just tosses state on the detail. So when you hover over it, it says what state it is. But that's why when you see these longitude and latitude things, it says generated. That just means that Tableau has created it themselves. You don't actually have a data point inside your data that says longitude, latitude, and so on and so forth. If we were to get rid of state and bring in city on our detail, you can now see all the different cities that Tableau is automatically mapped out here inside of our data. And obviously the same thing, we do country. We just have United States orders, it looks like. But we're going to keep it with state to work with for now. Obviously, this is a really boring chart. So let's go ahead and bring in, actually, let's keep it simple. Let's just bring sales onto our color for now. And now you can see it has colored in all of our different states based on the sum of sales inside of them. Now you do have a few different options for maps. The automatic one is going to be viewed as we're kind of seeing here, where the color is the sum of sales. You could change the sum of sales instead of being on the color to be on the size. And now you're going to have kind of these different bullet point charts where the bigger the sales are, the greater the size is. So you could drag that up to make it look a little better here. But I think I typically like it on the color. That's how we built it out in the example. And then maps have a ton of functionality for customizing them. I typically don't like the default view here where it's showing Canada and Mexico. Like we don't have any sales in those countries, so no sense having them on our chart here. You also have the United States like title here and some of the map things. So to change that, you can click into format, and you can do, what is it? Wait, no, map. Background layers. Yeah. And turning out the washout percentage is what I typically do. And that's going to get rid of all of your background stuff other than what you're being shown from the data. So that's how you make a nice clean map. If you want to get really specific with it, you can change out just if it's coloring like the borders of your different countries or the names of your different states. I doubt you guys can see it on the screen behind me because it's really light. You can get rid of the state borders, the province names, so on and so forth. And then if you ever mess up and want to go to the defaults, you can just hit reset. But 99% of the time, I just wash everything out and call it good. There are also a few different layers that you can bring in. So this is default stuff that I'm not sure why it's not showing on my screen super well. It's a weird formatting thing. What was that? How did I remove it?
Yeah.
Turning washout all the way up to 100. Oh, how'd I get here?
Yeah.
Map, background layers. Yep. So if I remove my sum of sales from my color here, you can see in the data layer, Tableau has a ton of really cool built-in stuff that for some reason I can't see on my screen here. But this is pre-built data that they know and are including for free as an additional layer for you to bring in. So here I clicked on owner-occupied housing units, and you can see that this is colored not from any data I had, but from data that Tableau had itself. I can click into household in medium income, right? This is all just kind of census layer data that maybe you would want to bring into your map for some reason. So maybe if we bring in like sum of sales, we could see if things were correlated with blue collar farm and farm occupation and sales from my fake data set. Anyways, the point I'm trying to make with all this is you have a ton of options with maps. I personally think that if you wanted to get into those different options, you should take like an ArcGIS class or like some other very, very specific geospatial class, because you could easily spend 8 weeks just on maps alone in Tableau. From my 6 years in Tableau and in data science, I've never used anything other than turning up the washout. How do I get rid of this actually? No data layer. And dragging color on my sales. Like this is the bread and butter and what I use every time. So this is all we're going to use for this example. But I did want to show you guys that you have those options if you're super into maps, because maps are cool. Totally up to you. any questions, I'm more than happy to answer questions if you have detailed map questions.
Wait, so if we choose that, and then when I clicked on like household income,
Mhm.
it didn't make it the color for me. How did you do that?
You may need to remove sales from your color. So if I click on it, it doesn't update it either because sales is over, it's showing it on top of it. But if I drag sum of sales to like size instead of color, oh, maybe you need to get rid of your washout. Yeah, that's it. So it could have just been washing out your color. But if you drag that to 0, now the colors are based on the household income and the size is built on or based off my sum of sales. Did it work?
Yeah.
Cool. All right, I am going to go back to the sum of sales being on the color, everything washed out, and I'm going to remove that data layer. So we just have this. We will call this sales by state. All right, now we are going to combine this pretty map and our pretty bar chart and get them to act as an action or a filter for each other. So let's go ahead and create a dashboard. I'm going to, we had talked about this a few different times. I almost always change my size to be a fixed size and do like generic desktop or something. That way you don't have to worry about stuff automatically scaling, getting bigger or smaller and stuff like that. It's just always going to be this size no matter what. And it works on most devices, most generic devices, I guess. So let's bring our sales by state on here and our pretty bar chart on here. And let's go ahead and clean this up just a little before we get going. So let's click into this one, our pretty bar chart. And let's just change that from standard to entire view. So it's going to take up the entire view. I don't think we really need, we'll keep all this stuff for now. So does everyone have a dashboard with a map and a bar chart on it? If not, I can come around. All right. Let's change before we get going, just because I can see this causing issues. The dimension parameter, let's just change that to category for now. Okay, so we're on our dashboard. We are going to click into the very top where it says dashboard and do actions. So dashboard actions. It is going to open up this new little UI. Actions let you create interactive relationships between data, dashboard objects, other worksheets, and the web. Perfect. We are going to click add action here, and it's going to be a filter. So what we're trying to do is when we click into a specific state, we want it to filter our bar chart over on the right just for that state. So the source sheet is what is the sheet that we are going to be choosing the filter on. So what's the source? And then the target sheet is what is the sheet that's going to be affected. So we want to be able to click on a state. So that's going to be our source. So we're going to uncheck this one. It's just sales by state. And our source sheet, we're going to uncheck sales by state. So it's the pretty bar chart. So the source sheet would be sales by state. The target sheet will be pretty bar chart. And then we are going to, and I'll show you all this after we get our first one done. We're going to run the action on just the select. So a hover would be as soon as you hovered over a state, it would filter. So stuff would be changing super quick. Menu, you'd have to click on it, then it would pop up a little menu, then you'd click again. It's a little annoying. We just wanted as soon as you click on it to update it. And then clearing the selection, you have 3 options. Either keep the filtered values. So if I click on Nebraska, it's going to filter to be just Nebraska. If I unclick it, so clearing the selection, this will say keep showing just Nebraska, which I don't really think makes sense. Exclude all values would be that unclick Nebraska, nothing shows. I want it to just default to showing all values. So sales by state, pretty bar chart, select, show all values. What was that, Melinda? Oh, all fine. What was the question? Yep. Well, actually, no, totally fine. Let's just close out of this. Dashboard, actions. And then add an action and click filter. And then we want the source sheet to be sales by state. We want the target sheet to be the pretty bar chart. We want to run this when you click on something. And when you unclick something, we want to show all values. So the filter by default is going to filter all fields. So since in our sales by state, the only field we have on there is just state, right? We don't have multiple dimensions up there for it to filter. So we can actually leave it as is. And this is just going to say, no matter what field we click on here, which in this case is just going to be a state, filter it in our target sheet. So let's just call this state filter. Click OK. And click OK. Now, if I click into Nebraska, this is going to update to only show my sales for the state of Nebraska. If I unclick it, it's going to show all the sales. If I click in here, it's going to show the state of Texas. And you can click around each one of these. Yes, Maz. Yep. So let's go ahead and we can click back into dashboard actions. We now have our state filter here. So if you click on that, you can click edit. And then you're just going to want to make sure that clearing the selection will show all values right here. Okay, now you guys don't need to follow along for this part. I'm just going to show you because this is what we want. I'm just going to show you what the other options look like. So if I click on hover instead of select, click OK. Then as soon as I hover over each one of these, I don't even have to click on it. It automatically updates here, which is kind of cool, but also kind of annoying if you're like trying to hover over something and it automatically goes. You have to wait for it to upload. But if for some reason you wanted that, that's how you do it. I'm going to go in and edit this again. The menu options. If I click on something, nothing happens. If I hover over it, see how this pops up, state filter. Hover, click hover, state filter. Then click into that, then it'll update it. So it's just an extra click. I'm going to leave it as the select. And then clearing the selection. So right now we have show all values. I think Moz, what you had was keep the filtered values. So here, if I click into Nebraska, it shows us Nebraska. When I unclick it, it's still showing Nebraska. So your only option is to show one thing at a time, which I don't love. The other thing would be if you wanted to exclude all values. So right now I'm showing just Utah. When I unclick that, I'm showing nothing. Nebraska, Texas, unclick it, nothing. So there's different use cases for each, but I would say a large majority of the time, I just keep it as showing all values. All right, so the only thing I don't love here is it's kind of confusing when you're updating it, what you're actually showing here. So I want to add in something into my title to let it know that it's filtered by that certain amount. So if I click into Nebraska, let's go ahead and leave it clicked for now. If I go back to my pretty bar chart, you can now see on that filters, and I didn't add this, right? I can now see that from the action, it was created from the state Nebraska. I have this new filter. Let's go ahead and just double click into our title. And maybe in small parentheses, we put filtered to. Now if we go insert, we can see that we have state as an option. I'm just going to go ahead and make this really small in italics or something. So now it says filtered to Nebraska. So now if I go back to my dashboard, when I unselect it, it says filtered to all. If I click into Texas, it says filtered to Texas, so on and so forth. Yep. You'll just want to go to, I think, yeah, it doesn't matter. If you go to your pretty bar chart, double click into the title, and then you'll just want to type whatever you want to type. So I typed filtered to, and then insert. You should have an option for the state here. Cool. Does everyone have a dashboard that's looking like this so far? Filter to a state. Title updates. You still do your sales and profit stuff over here. I want to make sure everyone's kind of following along because this is going to be the foundation of our final project. So definitely save what you have tonight. It'll be really easy to build on top of. All right, so that's one really simple dashboard action. I would say it's the one I use the most, is being able to filter between different stuff. But if we go back to dashboard actions, you can see that there are a few different things. So I'll just talk through all these real quick, and I'll show you one more that I think is really cool. Highlight is going to be really simple, where instead of just like filtering, it will highlight on a different view. So like if we had states in both of them, I clicked on Nebraska, it will highlight all the things that came from Nebraska. Go to URL is the one that we're going to learn about next. Go to sheet is actually kind of neat. I can just show you guys that one real quick. No need to follow along. Sometimes if you want to maybe like drill into something a little bit more, like sometimes what we would use for this is if we have like a sales leaderboard, like I showed you guys in the past, you could have like all the different rep names. Say that you wanted the reps to be able to click into their name and see all their deals that popped up. So take them to an entirely different sheet, but don't overwhelm them on the top. You can do something really simple like this. When I click on either one of these sheets, take me to, let's do our goal parameter or something. So if I click on this, it pops me over to this sheet over here. Doesn't matter what I click on because I didn't set any differences. But if you wanted to be able to drill down and bounce people around, you can do that. I'm going to get rid of that action though. And then you can actually change the parameter. So maybe we have a parameter called Nebraska or something. Instead of having them go in and click based on the dropdown, you can have them click into a state and then set values that we're not going to talk about in this class. If you guys ever take Tableau 202, we'll talk about sets in there. So let's go ahead and create a go-to URL. So what's really cool about this is it allows you to have dynamic variables inside of your URL. So we are going to be doing this for Nebraska. What we want, or for the states, what we want this to end up looking like is when I click into this, it gives me a learn more and takes me to the Wikipedia page for Nebraska. Now you can type in any URL you want. So for this one, just to make it really easy to start, we want our source sheet, so the one that we click into, to be sales by state. Now, earlier we chose select to filter it by, but if we're clicking into something that's filtering, we don't want it taking us to another page at the same time. So we're going to change this to be the menu. So this is where only if they want to learn more, they can hover and view it. URL target, this is just if you want you to create a new tab or a new browser. And then you're going to enter in the URL. So to start with, let's keep it really, really simple. And let's just type in www.google.com. It will show you a preview here. You can test it and make sure that it works. I don't know why I got a QRC link. Weird. Let's hit OK. So now if we click into this, see how we have this hyperlink 1. We click on that, and it takes us to google.com. Does everyone have that part working? Okay. But what's cool and where this gets powerful, let's go dashboard actions, let's edit that, is we can enter in, just like we entered in for our titles and stuff like that, any of the data points that we have. So for the sake of this example, what's really cool about Wikipedia is it's the same exact URL no matter what. And then the last thing is just the title of the page. So if I type in like Texas here, it automatically takes me to the Texas Wikipedia page. If I type in Florida here, it automatically takes me to Florida. So we have these same data points inside of Tableau. So we are just going to go in. It may be worth going out to Wikipedia and copying this so you don't have to type it in yourself. Just go to any Wikipedia page, copy the URL, or I could just toss it into Slack link too. But now for my URL, I can copy that in there, get rid of Florida, and insert by state. So now no matter what state I click on, it's going to take me to the English Wikipedia.org /wiki / whatever the state that is. So now if I hit OK, I click into Nebraska. I have my hyperlink, and it takes me to the Nebraska Wikipedia page. I click into California, hit the hyperlink, and it takes me to the California Wikipedia page. Does everyone have that part working? Cool. So then the last thing that we'll do there is let's just change that so it doesn't just say hyperlink 1. So let's edit this and type in learn more about, and then same thing, we can insert in the name of the state. So it says learn more about state. Okay, so now in our menu option, it'll say learn more about Nebraska, learn more about Texas, learn more about New York. And all of those take us out to the Wikipedia page. All right. Any questions based on what we have so far? Cool. All right. Last little bit. We're going to talk about some of the different objects that you can toss into a dashboard. We're really only going to cover one tonight, but I wanted to talk through a few different ones. So on our dashboard here, we've talked through horizontal and vertical containers before, right? That's just a way to evenly space and block out your different items on your dashboard. Text is pretty self-explanatory. You can drag it on here, type whatever you want, and it pops in a little text box. Extensions, you can download different extensions and bring onto here. This is kind of like some of the stuff that Scott was showing us before the class, is sometimes people will build out their own things to make up for what Tableau doesn't have. There are some pretty cool ones out there if you want to play around with them. I've never used any of these, but if you wanted to make really pretty tables that are better than Charlie Burtwhistle's, use some Tableau extensions. Ask Data is a really cool one. It's not going to work. Oh, it's not connected to Tableau server. But essentially, this was like one of their really, really early AI things. It's been out there for like 10 years now. And since we're not connected to Tableau server, we can't see it. But it will take in what data you have on the page and allow you to ask questions. So like, how much furniture was sold in the state of Nebraska in 2018? It'll actually populate the data in there for you. Stories we talked about. The one that we're going to bring in tonight is actually an image, because I use these in a lot of our different Tableau dashboards. So we'll come back to that in a second. Blank is exactly what it sounds like. If you're just like trying to mess with some spacing stuff and you want states to be up above, you don't want anything here, you can add in a blank slot. Workflows are really, I don't know. Yeah, we're not going to have access to it on Tableau Public. But they're essentially dashboard actions on steroids. So if you wanted to be able to click into something, have it take you somewhere else, have it filter down to this, and have it pop up a special page. I think I've used one once in my life. Web pages are exactly what it sounds like. Web pages are actually kind of cool. www.google.com. So now you're just have your own browser inside of Tableau, which may seem kind of pointless. Where it comes powerful is if you actually connect in your browser that's entering in the data. So think about your guys' Google Sheet that we did before, is you could have your Google Sheet here. You could send people out to update their own stuff, and then the charts would update live right beside them. Or like the sales leaderboard example that we've talked about, maybe they enter in their sales here, hit OK, and then it automatically populates there. So it starts getting powerful when you start connecting the data to whatever your web page is. But if you just wanted to like build a Buildertrend branded dashboard and wanted to have buildertrend.com in there, you could do that as well too, because it's just a web browser instance inside of your dashboard. Navigation, this one would be for if you wanted to, you'd add in different options to take you to a different page. So navigate, it's kind of like that go to sheet thing, but instead it's just a button on here. Actually, what I use these for a large majority of the time is if I have an action that takes me to a different sheet, a lot of times I'll need like a back button to get back to the dashboard. So that's where you bring in these navigation things. I'm not actually entirely sure what this download one is. Oh, if you wanted to download the, let's put it up over in the corner. If you're trying to show your boss what you made here, you can click download. Maybe I need to edit it. Export to PDF. is this not working? It should give you the ability to download this. Okay, if you control click, print to PDF, hit OK. And it will download that view into a PDF. So if you mess with something you want to show someone and they don't have Tableau access, you can allow the ability to actually download that and send it out as a PDF instead of in Tableau. And these last two are actually new. We don't have them in Tableau Server. Add or remove filters. Alt click to select. So I'm seeing this for the very first time right now. Well, I may need to look into that more. Add filter sheets. Because I don't necessarily know what that is, but. And then I know Einstein Discovery. So when Salesforce bought Tableau, Salesforce has an AI tool called Einstein. So I'm guessing this is their version that you need to authenticate into Salesforce to do, which I'm not going to do on Tableau Public. So I will do some research into these last two things because I'm not entirely sure what they are. And I will get back to you guys on that. But the one thing we are going to do is let's just go ahead and bring in an image, because I typically always will drop a little branded image in the top right or something of my dashboard. So again, I don't know if you guys have any like handy images to bring in for the sake of the example, but I think I saved. I thought I had a ODSA image, fit, center it. Okay. And now I have this pretty little Omaha Data Science Academy image in here. I know I went through a lot of things and I didn't really explain them super in depth, but any questions on any of the specific objects that we talked about? Or how to get an image in there? Cool. Let's take a quick 9-minute break because it's 8-minute break because it's 7:52. And then for the homework or assignment portion of the class, we're actually just going to get a head start on our final project for Wednesday. And then we could probably get out of here a little early. So be back 8 o'clock, 8 minutes from now. Whoops. Would anyone here be super opposed if we ended class right now? Speak now or forever hold your peace. Okay. Anyone online, would any of you be really pissed at me if I said we could all go home right now? Connor said nope. That's all I need. Okay. So here's what we're going to do. I think we've covered a ton tonight. Anything that we worked towards for Wednesday is just going to be a repeat of what we did. And I personally need a bit of a brain break, and I think you guys do too. I'm also not feeling super great. So before Wednesday, I'm going to type out our final project spec sheet. So exactly what we need to do. You guys will all have the link to this. You'll all have step-by-step what you need to do to create this. This is creating one parameter to filter by our different measures, creating 2, 3 parameters for our different axes here, 4 parameters for a breakout, a dashboard action, which we already have done. So make sure you guys save your stuff for tonight, and a dashboard action to click into something else with a picture. So I'll type all that out. We'll come in. Nate will give us, here's what happened next stuff. We'll spend like an hour. I'll walk around. I'll share screens, get everything done. We'll build this out over the next hour next week or on Wednesday. We should be done by 8. We should be good to go. I just don't think it's worth building towards that if that's the whole point of Wednesday anyways. So that's what you can expect for Wednesday. Any questions now before that on things that you don't quite understand, since that will be essentially all we'll be doing in 2 days? No? All right. Sweet. Well, thank you guys very much for coming in. Happy Monday. Hope you learned a lot. I will tell Scott that you guys all hated him and that he's never welcome back. Just kidding. People online, I'm going to end the stream. Thank you very much. Slack me if you need anything. As always, I'll send the recording link and Tableau public dashboard and stuff like that. Connor, see you, man. Yes, Wednesday is the final, Carmen. In class, open book, open note, open teacher, final.